You mentioned the budget a few times, which for our Pentagon is truly astronomical. I mean, the human brain can't even understand it. You count the black budget, it's near over $1 trillion a year. A few years ago, it was $21 trillion of unaccounted for adjustments over 15 years. They just failed their fifth audit, which they failed every one. And in that fifth audit, they said they can't account for over half their assets, meaning they don't know where a lot of the stuff is, how it's being used, whether it's being used. This goes for everything from planes and helicopters to buildings. And so it raises the question, is the military accountable to the American people?
These guys can't find their assets with two hands on a map, and they don't want to try. Nobody's obliging them to try. Half the time, Congress wants to spend more than the Pentagon does and wants less accountability than the Pentagon wants, which wants none at all. It's the only department or agency within the U.S. government that isn't supposed to be accountable at all, even in secret, for what it does. And it's the majority of the money. When the majority of your tax dollars, your income tax dollars, more than half of them go to a war machine, right? When the majority of the discretionary spending, the spending that Congress decides on year after year, goes to a war machine, I don't want to hear people screaming big government, small government at each other. I want to hear people talking about moving the money, and it's popular. It wins every poll every time, despite all the mythology and all the propaganda and all the hatred for Vladimir Putin and love for the Ukrainian people. Every single time people say move the money to human and environmental needs and out of the military. But it's just not talked about, even in some of these, fringe movements outside of the corporate system. It's not talked about.
Welcome to a special edition of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', people? We are back. Welcome to Nick and CJ Friday. We have a fantastic episode, and that is a theme that we hit on all the time. Like, when you see bipartisanship, that is when you should be afraid. The biggest myth is that Washington do not get along. There is bipartisan consensus on military spending. The political discourse right now, CJ, between the Democrats and the Republicans, the red-blue debate is you have Republicans that saying Joe Biden is too soft on China, despite the fact that he's arming Taiwan. And then you have Democrats that say, no, we're actually stronger on China than Trump. Trump was actually weak on China. So the debate is who's stronger, who's more hawkish on China.
And like I said to you before in a different conversation, I already cut you off. To me, this is a dance. Republicans are supposed to, hey, you're not doing enough. It's to make the egregious decisions, the crazy, unhinged decisions by the so-called left party seem like it's not outrageous. That's absolutely. To me, it's all part of the game. So.
Yeah, there was a segment on Morning Joe where Chuck Schumer was on there, and Chuck Schumer, he just openly said, he's like, yeah, I'm a famous China hawk. This is unhinged shit.
Like
I'm watching like I'm a famous China hawk. And people want to say China's aggressive. But with that said, I want to bring my guests in. I'm very interested again, Lee Camp's take on this. Amazing anti-imperialist journalist. He's with Mint Press News now. I think he hosts the most censored news show.
And loving it.
The most censored comedian in America. Welcome to RBN, my friend, Lee Camp. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Love your stuff.
Absolutely, brother. And I want to give you a take on this because I'm actually interested. I want to hear your take on the Chinese balloon because I've been asking a few people about this. And it's obvious, like when they're not showing the contents of the balloon, you have right-wing conspiracy theorists saying it's an EMP bomb. They was looking at our military infrastructure so they can see where they can bomb people. So apparently, CJ, G is the wind god. Putin weaponizes winter. Apparently, according to them, they flew a balloon across the Pacific Ocean, through Canada, through Montana, instead of using satellites. But I want to get your take. Am I out of bounds, Lee?
Yeah, and then we shot it out of the sky. Are we sure there wasn't a balloon boy in there? Because we've had balloon boys. Are we sure we didn't just kill a Chinese kid? No, but to me, it's like nothing says weak, paranoid, pathetic country like the flip out over this balloon.
Yep.
If we're tough, if we're America and we're tough and strong and all those things, shouldn't this not faze us at all? Instead, we're losing our shit over a weather balloon when China has 1 million satellites, the US has 1 million satellites, Russia has 1 million satellites. We're all watching each other, but no, they need a balloon to slowly drift across Montana and observe the buffalo. And that's what's really gonna give them an edge in this global, hegemony battle. To me, it feels like a fucking pool noodle washed ashore in California from China, and we're like, it's a spy noodle. Like,
I got a question more related but not related. Do you find yourself as a comedian? It's too much material right now with the collapsing of this empire. It's like, it's too much. I can't even get to everything. Do you ever feel like that?
I feel like that all the time. I almost gave up on comedy. It was like 15 years ago when I read the story that the U.S., and this is true, the U.S. military spent over $1 million researching the creation of a gay bomb, a bomb to turn the enemy gay. It like at the highest levels of the Pentagon, they spent millions thinking they could drop some kind of pheromones on the enemy, turn them gay, and that would help them win the battle. And when I read that, I was like, what am I fucking doing? What is my job?
How you top that?
They write themselves. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. So and your reaction is perfect because it shows how pathetic the United States is, how cowardly, how easy it is to rile up these people into pro-war frenzy. And I love this tweet because this is what the United States empire does. It's nothing but projection. So I found this why this is a good one. The quickest way to figure out what the U.S. itself is up to is read what they're saying about China. The same for Russia, Iran, their enemies. Whatever they say about them is a massive projection. They say China is an unhinged authoritarian police state where people are not allowed to protest. Have you seen Cop City?
Right.
So you see this headline. I'm gonna get your thoughts on this, CJ and Lee. It said China used spy balloon drama to drum up nationalistic fervor. That's exactly what happened in the United States right now.
Yeah, and they also have used it to say China's out to get us, right? China's spying on us. China is trying to get all of you and surveil you and everything. But of course, that again, that's perfect projection because the U.S. has 800 military bases around the world. We surround China with military bases. We surround Russia with military bases. We surround Iran with military bases, etc. And then we go, you know what? They're out to get us. They're spying on us. And you know how many military bases China has outside of China? One in Djibouti. That is it. And meanwhile, we're like, they're trying to take over the world.
How is this believable to the American public? My question is, how is this believable? You have two eyes and a brain, unless you're not using one of the two. Like, I don't understand, Lee, how this is believable. Do you have an idea? What's your take on why so many people believe or fall for this stuff?
I mean, one of the things that I often point to is there's a well-known psychological study showing that people will eventually conflate familiarity with truth, even if they knew something was false going into it. So you could tell them, you could quiz people, find out what they know as the truth, and then tell them the opposite over and over again. And eventually they start going, oh yeah, I think I did hear that. And it works. And so, you know, the best example maybe is like Russiagate. It was like, as long as they repeated over and over for 4 years, Russia got Trump elected and not the catastrophic Hillary Clinton campaign. As long as they repeat that before, people that are rather smart start to go, didn't Russia rig those elections, right? That's what happened, right? And it's fucking pathetic, but it works. Like, they wouldn't do it if it didn't work. They wouldn't say. So when they're banging away for 24/7 for 7 days, 10 days on this Chinese balloon, I guess people started to go, yeah, didn't that Chinese balloon, didn't it kill a kid in North Carolina? Like,
you guys notice that every time there's a new war event, whenever there's a new propaganda campaign, we lose some people. Like, everyone pretend they're anti-imperialist until the war propaganda starts. So in Russiagate, we thought there was this wide left coalition, and then we saw people push Russiagate. They obviously split the left because that's a very important issue to get wrong. And then there's some people who passed that test, and then the new propaganda campaign happened. Ukraine happened, and then there are a lot of people get Ukraine wrong. Now every time there's a new propaganda campaign, we lose some people. They're
just slowly picking people away. You look behind you. You look behind you in the line, and there's two dudes left.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like.
I want to get your opinion on this on Nord Stream. We covered this yesterday. You had Seymour Hersh, who broke a story which was obvious to anyone who was paying attention. Right, the United States did a covert operation with the CIA and bombed Nord Stream pipeline. This is something that's been in their interest in quite some time. This is the State Department that's still denying the latest allegations that the United States blew up Nord Stream. And this video, this guy, you see this guy around long. This squirmy motherfucker always lies on behalf of the state. So I'm not, for sake of time, I'm not gonna play the whole video, but the United States State Department is still denying it to this day. And just to remind you guys, I will play the video that Jay sent me. It's a short compilation of the conflicts of interest that they already admitted beforehand.
The sledgehammer that we have against Putin is to shut down the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and do it permanently.
This is a real, acute, and proven threat.
I'm a big proponent of making sure we stop Nord Stream 2 from happening.
Stop Nord Stream 2.
And we need
the chancellor is there right now.
Assets like the Nord Stream 2.
And, Trump also isn't wrong to identify Nord Stream 2, this pipeline that he talked about today, as problematic.
There is still time to stop.
You see, that's when they agree with Trump. Whenever Trump would say something super hawkish, they he finally became president.
Yeah.
Nord Stream 2 if we act quickly.
The timeline for action is short.
And I'm not going to stop working to halt Nord Stream 2 to stop Russia.
End it once and for all.
I mean, he needs to kill the Nord Stream 2 pipeline right now.
And I think the most important thing right now, and what Zelensky said, is they want Nord Stream 2 stopped. That's what I see as the most tangible reason and the tangible effect.
I believe we must stop this Nord Stream 2.
Despite all of this, we caught them in 4K saying this stuff. They didn't turn around and say Russia did it. What are your takes on this new revelation and how the media went along with these politicians and lied and said Russia did it, despite the fact that they were caught on camera saying this stuff? What are your take on this, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, everyone should read that article. It really gives you the play-by-play. A lot of people going, "Oh, I knew it was America." Yeah, a lot of people kind of knew it was U.S., UK, maybe via Ukraine, but they knew we were behind it. But it's different to actually see the details of how this was done, using a NATO exercise as cover, putting C4 on the pipes and blowing it 3 months later after the NATO exercise so that it would look like it was unrelated. All these details are very important, and everyone should read that article. And I think a lot of people maybe don't know, because he's in his 80s now, how significant Seymour Hersh is. This is the guy who, revealed the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, won Pulitzer Prize winning, Pulitzer Prizes for journalism on Watergate and many other things. And nowadays, because he was so good and successful at revealing the crimes of our American government, where is he printed? Where's the New York Times article by Seymour Hersh? It's not. It's on his fucking Substack, because that's what will still have Seymour Hersh. That's when you know a journalist is legit. Anyway,
and then they say he was a blogger. I want to show you this, because I covered this at Nick at Night. This is how they try to delegitimize him. It said White House says blog post. Oh, this is a guy on this blog.
Yeah, just a Pulitzer Prize winning blogger. Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, no, it clearly is absolutely accurate. All of it lines up with the way the American government works, the way we would do something like this. Like you showed there, so many of them saying this pipeline had to be stopped, and that it is. And most notably is, which was not in the clips there, is Joe Biden. Within a few months, 6 months before it was blown up, he said in a press conference that they would stop the Nord Stream pipeline. And when asked, how would you do that considering it's a German project, he gave a little smirk and said, "We have ways, we'll stop it." And a lot of people thought he was just being dumb that he let that leak. But now it seems clear that the reason he did that, the reason he was maybe told to do that, was because if you have a U.S. top secret military project where the U.S. military is involved, you apparently have to alert Congress. You have to tell, legally, you have to tell Congress. But if you say it publicly, you no longer have to tell Congress. So and Victoria Nuland said something similar that same day. So it seems quite likely that the reason he did that was so they did not have to alert Congress to the fact that they were creating a massive international terrorism and putting us on the brink of nuclear. Like, that's what people don't seem to be thinking about here. Is it's not just, oh, that's interesting, the U.S. took out this pipeline. These sociopaths put us at the edge of nuclear Armageddon that would kill us all. Who knew how Russia was going to respond to this? Russia certainly knew it was America or American linked. So it's like, they didn't know that we wouldn't see nuclear bombs raining down. And apparently there were people within the establishment saying, don't do this. This is going to create a fucking fury. And it very well could still. But it's like, these sociopaths are putting us all at risk. It's not just that I believe in diplomacy and I believe there should be peace and I believe we shouldn't be at war and all those things. It's that they're putting us fucking at risk by doing this insanity. It also says to the whole world, hey, it's okay, even if you're not technically at war with the country, to just blow up their infrastructure. Just go for it. That's what it says.
The restraint shown from Russia, China, and Iran have prevented World War III. And that's a statement that blows the mind from Western chauvinists and liberals, but it's true. The United States have constantly crossed their red lines, and then they have to back down. And then they constantly have to look weak. Like when China put the red line over Taiwan. They say, Nancy Pelosi better not come to Taiwan or there'll be consequences. Nancy Pelosi better not come to Taiwan. Then Nancy Pelosi said, I'm going to do it anyway.
Or Trump assassinating Iran's top general.
Yes.
We didn't know how that would play out. We bumble into every fucking situation as a sociopathic child, hoping there will be other adults in the room who don't lead us to nuclear war.
Yes. Russia was like, we draw a red line at Sweden and Finland join NATO. The nuclear option on the table if Finland and Sweden join NATO. Then the United States and the West was like, you know what? Finland, Sweden, you want to join NATO? And Russia was like, God damn it. All right, I guess we allow that now. And then they used that against Putin. They said, well, Putin said you didn't want Sweden and Finland to join NATO. And then they joined NATO. You didn't do anything. Yeah, because he didn't want World War III.
Right. And he gave a lot of red lines about Ukraine, about the growth of NATO, about putting NATO weaponry on Russia's border. He had a lot of red lines. He signed the Minsk agreements trying to create peace. And every one of the lines we crossed. And eventually Russia invaded Ukraine. Now, I'm opposed to the invasion, but at the same time, I think people need to understand the history here, understand that the U.S. fucking created this intentionally. And something else that's important in the Cy Hirsch article is that this, and he just kind of mentions it, but people need to understand this. This also serves U.S. purposes in terms of putting Germany and France particularly, but the EU in general, back into kind of like a vassal position of underneath the United States. This is anti-Europe, what we're doing. We are trying to force them down to be underneath us because they were growing. They were cooperating with Russia economically. They were, shunning some of the U.S. Talking points. And now they're all back underneath us.
Yeah, and people don't acknowledge the fact that NATO countries have to spend 2% of their budget on military weapons. So the United States have a vested interest in expanding NATO and putting these countries under their control. So it's all about U.S. dominance and promoting a unipolar world with U.S. on top. And people who bring this up, basic facts, basic history, are smeared as Putin apologists. They are attacked and delegitimized. Like you see how they call a legendary reporter himself just a blogger. And there have been educators that have been censored. I mean, this has been a massive fascistic campaign on behalf of the West. You have Zelensky banning Orthodox Church, opposition parties, opposition media, and the West is cheering it on under the guise of fighting for freedom and democracy. And that's why RBN, this is why Men Press News and Lee Camp, we are covering this with the amount of energy and urgency that we have. Now, I'm going to show you guys an example of massive Western censorship. What you think is going on in China, what you think is going on in Russia is all a projection on the West. That is what they're doing. There was a Danish lecturer who was famous. He studied the history between in the USSR, the fall of the USSR. He wrote a lot about the Donbass and the civil war in the Donbass in 2014. And he got sacked not because of his lectures, which none of the people who sacked him attended. And they explained this in the story. It's a long story. I'm kind of summing up here. They never attended his lectures. They read one of his books where he explained, like, there's this Nazi faction in Ukraine, this fascistic element in Western Ukraine that is obsessed with purging Romanis, Muslims, Black people, ethnic Russians, and creating a one-person, one-nation state. And then there are a lot of people in Ukraine who do not support that. And that's why they support Zelensky, who ran on the peace campaign. And a lot of people supported leaving Ukraine for Russia when Zelensky in Ukraine didn't keep up their end of the bargain. So this guy writes about this stuff. He talks about this all the time. And in his lectures, he explained that he keeps his own personal opinions away from his lectures, right? And they still fired him for just telling the truth about this. And I'm going to read this as well. I'm going to get your guys' thoughts on this. I reported on this a few months ago. You had a Polish Jewish journalist who quit, like, the Polish version of the New York Times because they demanded that he whitewash the Azov Battalion. And you see Western media outlets more than happy to do it. And they say they're just a far-right organization. No, they are Nazis, right? So they had a famous journalist that quit. He quit what many regard as the country's newspaper of record after it demanded he describe the Azov Battalion as far-right instead of neo-Nazi.
Yeah.
So what I want to bring to you, Lee Camp, I want to get your take on this crackdown of dissent, this censorship, whether it comes to educators and when it comes to reporting as well on telling the truth about Ukraine. We all know how much you've been censored, how much we've seen Western journalists attacked. So what are your overall take on this propaganda campaign that you've seen?
Yeah, you know, that famous quote, I don't remember who it's by, the first victim of war is the truth. And that seems quite evident on all sides. But yeah, there's the list in Ukraine, the hit list against journalists has really been aggressive. Journalists arrested, tortured. You know, an American that I'm friends with, Wyatt Reed, who was over there, he was added to that hit list as speaking basically the truth about Ukraine, but they don't view it as the truth, or they know it's truth that they don't want out there. And he went to Ukraine, went to the Donbass region, and within an hour of his arrival, the hotel he was staying at, which is known for housing journalists, it was shelled, and he was nearly hit by it and nearly killed. And, you know, was it a coincidence that this hotel gets shelled within an hour of his arrival? Who knows? But he certainly was on a hit list, and, you know, they've put others on that hit list. Anyone who has some notoriety that's speaking the truth about Ukraine.
Lula's on the hit list, I believe.
Lula is? Yeah, I didn't know that. I know Roger Waters is.
Yeah, I heard Claire Daly say so. It's wow. They put literally influential politicians on the hit list for just telling the truth.
I know Rand Paul was for a time, if he still is.
Yeah. Later, we're gonna cover how Lula, he went to the White House, and now we're gonna cover this later in the stream. And he said, "We not taking sides here," just like he told the Germany chancellor, "No, we're not taking sides." But anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Lee. I'll let you finish your thoughts on the insanity of this propaganda.
Well, the U.S. has endorsed this, which, you know, is yet again the U.S. endorsing, even if they didn't create the hit list, they're endorsing the persecution and attacks on journalists. And of course, the biggest one being Julian Assange. But this is what the U.S. stands for now: is people speaking the truth cannot be tolerated. And just to real quick go back to what you said about Lula saying we're staying out, we're not taking sides on this. 80% of the world's population, and this was covered in some mainstream outlets as well, 80% of the world's population is in countries that are either allying with Russia or not siding with U.S. sanctions, meaning they're just staying out of it, which is a huge change in the way the world is working. There is a massive number of countries that are no longer just bending over to U.S. bloodthirsty foreign policy, which is a big step.
Yeah, absolutely. The last topic I want to get your opinion on, we got about like 5 minutes when we get you out of here, is Syria. I did a report on Nick and Night on Wednesday. Make sure you guys check that out, discussing U.S. sanctions on Syria and how that is making the tragedy of the earthquake even worse. And this is just an updated story. Turkey and Syria face threat of secondary disaster after earthquake, even as dramatic rescues offer moments of relief. And now what the Western media is trying to cope with is the fact that the United States empire has shown their moral failings, because there are Western countries who are not able to help Syria because of the brutal sanctions that we have on Syria. We talk about respecting country sovereignty when it comes to Ukraine, but we occupy 1/3 of Syria, stealing their oil, burning their wheat. Now we're sanctioning them, which is making this humanitarian crisis even worse. And guess who's stepping up to the plate? You have China, Russia, the DPRK, our so-called enemies that are stepping up and helping Syria the best that they can. And I want to get your thoughts on this. And the topic overall is the brutality of U.S. sanctions, if you want to speak on that. But I want to read this headline that I saw earlier today. And this is how the United States media is spinning their inhumanity. There's no other way to say it, their inhumanity. Iran is helping them, but now they're using that to smear them. They say Iran may use Syria earthquake to smuggle arms under the guise of aid. And I continue. I won't get you in here, Lee Camp. I know you probably got a lot to say on this. But there's another projection. The United States is the world's largest arms dealer, largest exporter of terrorism, but they trying to project that on Iran to other people. But Lee, I would love to get your thoughts on this. And in general, you can speak on Syria, sanctions as a whole. Also, that ridiculous headline. I would love your take on this.
Yeah, no, that headline's totally true. I also heard that Iran might be smuggling in children they're selling into prostitution. They're smuggling those into Syria right now. No, it's just utter horseshit. But yeah, so I talked about this on my live stream, the sanctions against Syria and this earthquake and everything on my live stream at leecamp.net. And what people don't realize is like a lot of the horror of this earthquake, the number of people dying is connected to the U.S. and sanctions and continuing, helping to make sure that war continues. Even if we're not fully responsible for the war, we're helping to make sure it continues forever, for as long as we can keep it going, because we just love watching Syrians die. And, sanctions the word sanctions in and of itself is a fucking euphemism. It's economic war, and people die, and sometimes more people die from our economic wars than from our bombs. In Afghanistan right now, you have more people dying from our economic war on them than you had a year ago from our bombs dropping. So to act like sanctions are a nice, friendly thing, and then on top of that, it's like, who dies from sanctions? It's the poor, it's the ill, it's elderly, it's babies. We are killing babies and high-fiving that our sanctions are having a good impact.
That's why when they say targeted sanctions, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's similar to smart bombs, Oh, well, it goes in the billing and it just hits the one guy you want to hit. No, it's bullshit with the targeted sanctions. And of course, in an earthquake, not only is part of it that the infrastructure is crap in Syria. The UN rapporteur came back and said 90% of Syrians live underneath the poverty level. And so when you have a crisis, when you have an earthquake like this, they have nothing. They already didn't have electricity, didn't have gas, didn't have heavy machinery needed to rescue people. And so it's like the U.S. is watching people die and saying, yay, we're winning. It is the most sociopathic, disgusting foreign policy you could ever imagine. And there is no excuse for it. It's fucking, we're Jeffrey Dahmer and we're going, well, that guy, he's doing a lot of good around the world. No, we're not.
Well said, Lee. I appreciate your time. Give shout outs. Where can I find you? You guys do a lot of good work at MinPress. Any last thoughts? Where can they find you, Lee?
Oh, thanks a lot, guys, for having me. My stuff's at leecamp.net and also rumble.com/leecamp. I had to head on over to Rumble after my main YouTube channel was banned globally. It's still there. You can still go and see a giant thing that says banned in your country, which means banned in all countries. But yeah, rumble.com/leecamp. I live stream 3-4 times a week. So.
Most censored comedian in America. Once again, thank you for joining Lee Camp.
Thank you, Lee.
I'm gonna pop you out now. Thanks once again. Make sure you guys check out MinPress. I follow them. They do a lot of great reporting.
No, they have, like, I would say in the last maybe 6 to 10 months, they've kind of revamped it, and it's gotten better in my opinion. They kind of revamped it. Like their branding is getting better over there. So
see, I'll let you do
added Lee.
Yeah, I'll let you do
We can take a little break, or if you want to do anything else. So all right, so let's do absolutely. So let's do a couple of announcements, and I believe. Actually, I think I want to start with this one because it'll be a fun story after our discussion with. We'll talk about this master list in a second, but first I'll do a couple of announcements here. Welcome to those who just subscribed because Lee Camp was here. You're fans of Lee, and welcome. For those who just subscribed, because we had a few people subscribe. Let's toss up our Substack. So if you want to get notifications of streams like this, like streams like the one Savvy has later today, where she talks about Roger Waters, join our Substack and you'll get notifications when we go live. You also get notifications of when we drop clips. We typically drop 2 to 4 clips, sometimes 5 clips every day. On the weekends, maybe 2 clips Sunday, 2 clips Saturday, something like that. So make sure you join our Substack to get that. The added perk of our Substack, you get access to our Discord also. So you also get access to that. This was our sub count right after the Lee interview. So again, thank you for those joining because of the Lee Camp interview. Hopefully you stay for this ride with RBN. Let's like the video. We're at about 285 people watching and 170 likes. So could we hit another 100 people, 110 people hit that like button? But 110 more people hit that like button, we will be right at about 280 likes. The other thing is the new target is RBN to 50K. So 50K is the new target by the end of this year. It's a big target, but we like to tackle big targets. RevolutionaryBlackoutNetwork.com is the website. Check it out. And last but not least, their contact information, info@RevBlackNetwork.com. I don't think we had any super chats, but I'm gonna look. And we can start with this fun story just to get our juices going again. This is just a fun story to just kind of laugh at some of the things that people put in this tweet that I have up here, Nick. Drone strike that like button. I wouldn't say that, but I get the joke, Thomas. Thanks for the comment. Lee Camp was great. Shama also, we only had 30 minutes.
That's like the third time we had Lee Camp on. Lee Camp is one of my favorite guests I've on. He's super fun. Like the comedian anti-imperialist, like same with Jimmy. Like I always those are the easiest conversations. Like I prepare a lot of stuff from Lee Camp, and I'm like, I already know I'm not gonna get to a lot of it, which we're gonna cover a lot more later this show. But people like Lee Camp, Jimmy, I feel the same with like Max Blumenthal. Like, those are the easiest conversations to do. Those are the people I want to have on. I don't care about having access to Marianne Williamson and the boutique left. I want to talk to people like Lee Camp and people that expose U.S. imperialism. I don't want to be friends with people like Crystal and them, whatever. But anyway, go ahead, CJ.
That's not the goal. Absolutely not. So let's look at some of the topics. I know this is not all the topics. This is just what I can gather from mine and your Twitter accounts, like what we tweeted out. So Matt Gaetz' resolution to end war, I do want to discuss that and how the framing and how it relates to progressives and a Democrats. You know how we're going to do. Stepping up U.S. war preparation against China. Victoria Nuland visits South Asia, man. This article I have from World Socialist Star. I keep saying that. World Socialist website talks about how Victoria Nuland is out basically because there's a communist leader of Nepal, I believe, that they're trying to do some sort of dealings to get people over in that region on their side with war with China. So we'll cover that. Maybe we can look at the full video. We didn't have time with
this is a good chat because there are a lot of failures of the NATO left, boutique left. I think NATO left is one of the best way to identify them because you guys noticed something, right? I brought up on Jimmy Dore show. I brought up quite a few times. This circle, and I'm done believing in consequences, right? Coincidences, right? All the shit, right? So yeah, the same people who was against forced to vote. I noticed these are the same people who were smearing the March for Medicare for All. These are the same people who advocating for funding Ukraine. Like, these are the people who consistently get shit wrong. These are the same people who advocate voting for Biden. How many times do people get these very crucial issues wrong before we identify them as people who at best are ineffective in leading workers off a cliff? After seeing many of their takes, like Matt Duss, I have a video. I don't know if you've seen it.
That guy's terrible.
Matt Duss on Democracy Now! Talking about.
Yeah, I almost did another segment of that. We almost did another segment of that.
We're doing that segment today. I got that planned for today, son. So we're gonna break that down.
Terrible.
So people like Matt Duss, who's Bernie Sanders' foreign policy advisor, they fell for Russiagate, was against forced to vote. They apologized for the squad strike breaking, like Ryan Grimm and them did. They apologize for the Biden administration all the time. How many times do they get shit wrong over a few year period before we're like, hold up, what is going on with this fact? That's why I post the CIA tactic list all the time. Not calling anyone CIA, but you motherfuckers getting a lot of shit wrong on a very consistent basis, and it's not
a very, very consistent basis. So let's start here, Aaron, with this short, fun segment to get us started. Thank you, everybody who has gotten us to 30,000. I forgot to say that. New target 50,000. And let's hit that like button. We got 270 people watching. Let's see if we can get to 270 likes. And let's start here, Aaron. Here is the master list. I put out this tweet, Nick, and I asked, like, hey, I wanted everybody to kind of chime in. I even asked you to retweet it, but I didn't expect it to take off like it did.
I haven't seen it yet.
It got people's juices going, and lots of replies. So we'll just kind of read a little bit of it, maybe talk about it for 5 or 10 minutes as a short segment. But here is the tweet making a master list of the worst things the squad or progressive Dems did in the past 2 years, first 2 years of Biden administration, because I wanted to pinpoint how these are the things they did while in power. Not like they're flailing while not in power. The chance to actually do change, that's when these terrible things came. And that was the point of making this master list. So this was the 5 that I kind of just fresh on my mind. Failed forced to vote, and it was so crystallized because of the Freedom Caucus and what they were able to extract, and people still. So to me, that's a body blow that they're not recovering from. The strike breaking is another body blow.
Like all these are. That's the funny part.
Yeah.
Go ahead, CJ. But the funny part is that all 5 of these things individually will be enough for me. But all right, I'm done with you. That's just me. I'm done with you for any one of these individual things. But they did all 5, and people still apologize for them.
Yeah.
Go ahead, CJ.
No, maybe I wasn't thinking of it that way, but these literally, that's how they came up in my mind. Like, I was thinking of things like, man, just singularly, I would leave just on this one thing, and I just happened to put them all 5 together. But covering for Biden, that's one that gets us more like ticked off, where we want to tweet about it more, even though he does a lot. But this is the thing, because it's so prevalent. And I've said this in the last 2 segments on You Left Shit Out, Nick, that it's clear. And I don't know if you've seen the video of AOC talking before the State of the Union and after. It is clear that she has accepted the role of I'm the left representative to give.
Yeah, I want to do a segment on that. I don't know how much of that you covered, but
yeah, I mean, we could do that because I covered it a different angle, and I think that the way you and I would cover it would be slightly different. So that could be something else we cover today. And then, of course, the 2 war things, the 2 military-industrial complex things, sending money to Ukraine and NATO, and then their support. And I use the word support because it's money and visual support. They also, Jamal Bowman visited several times, and they also vote in Iron Dome. So it's several things. That's why I use the word support to cover all of that. But what are your thoughts? I mean, you spoke on some of them, but what are your thoughts on some of these other ones before we move to some that other people have said? Nick?
Yeah, as I said, well, any one of those 5 would be the deal breaker. But the one that shocks me the most that people defend is number 4, where you have people that I've seen in a very performative fashion using the red-blue game that was like, we gotta resist Trump. We can't organize with anyone who likes Trump because they're Nazis. We got a bunch of Nazis. No tolerance towards Nazis. I know you guys remember that, like where they'll call it anyone who's a Trump supporter is a Nazi. They went from that to now they're apologizing to arming straight up Nazis, the neo-Nazi Azov Battalion, and a lot of these fucking fake leftists was cheering when Lula won. And Lula's like, you guys are out of your goddamn mind funding for war. He's like, I am a man of peace. Brazil is a nation of peace. If you're for peace, you should be all about advocating for a solution. Compare that to Matt Duss and the NATO left, who've been outflanked from the left by Matt Gaetz on this issue. So that's why I said out all 5 of these are cancelable. But number 4 is like, as someone who was an anti-imperialist, someone who was anti-war before I was a socialist or any of that shit, this was the biggest sin. I was like, holy shit. They just locked arms with the military-industrial complex. CJ, their position on this is the same as Joe Manchin's. Remember when Max Blumenthal asked Joe Manchin about Ukraine funding? Like, I'm all in. Oh,
yeah, baby. He was like, yeah, baby, we got to be giving up some more. Yeah, baby, you can be sending us whatever they want.
That might as well be Bernie Sanders. They got the same position. I'm all in. Right? But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, but to your point about Lula and how they could send money to Ukraine and do all these things and then be like, yay, Lula. It illustrates they know that they are just projecting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because how are you cheering a leader who has a great critique about what the U.S. is doing in Ukraine, and you are pretending like you're not hearing that? Oh, I'm for him for everything else. It is completely them projecting to us that they're left as they do stuff that's right, and that's essentially it. But let's look through a little of these, and then we can move on to because there's a lot of topics we want to get to. But you forgot the Rolling Stone cover. Somebody added there, and that's another one. Go ahead. I think 3 implies all the others. So number 3, I forgot what it is. Covering for the Biden administration. I guess that could be true. It may be forced to vote. But yeah, I guess that could be applied to all of them. Refuse to investigate, defund the FBI.
They apologize for it now.
This person says they just simply exist. And here's I don't, is this the guy that sent you that? No, I don't think he sent you that, Mike. It was a different person. So, like others said, a big one is even more egregious: budgets for Capitol Police, and of course the whole January 6th bullshit. Flipped on investigating the FBI for no reason. And in Omar's case, her position on getting rid of former Somalia president. Yeah, that's the reason why Somalians don't love her, don't like her. The principles involved, this has something to do with something else, sorry. Never heard it saying Medicare for all anymore. Supported corporate Democrats over progressive challengers. The largest funding boom to Capitol Police in history. Voted to get free reduced lunches. Voted to get rid of, they voted, wait, that's one I haven't confirmed. I'm just reading what these says. I didn't know that, if that's true. Ilhan Omar prompted Somali regime change from President Mohammed, and we just spoke about that. Used her diplomatic position to promote Rwandan authoritarian president and war criminal Paul Kagame, I think that's how you said it, blocked House resolution to free political prisoner Paul, and I already said his name wrong, so I'll just say Paul R. But I'll pause there for any other thoughts before we close. Let me read this one and then give your final thoughts. Voted for Nancy Pelosi as speaker, deferred to caucus leadership on Venezuela, voted for police funding, NATO expansion, and the largest consolidation of wealth in human history during a pandemic. Your thoughts, Nick?
Yeah.
Just overall thoughts while we close this out, and then I'll give my final thoughts and we can move on here.
Yeah. So the squad, as I said, as early as last year, their new position is as the Democratic Party PR agents. And we're going to do this segment later where AOC went on Rachel Maddow. And I saw this and I was like, man, yeah, I'm definitely going to say this for Nick and CJ, because this is, she's not sitting on Rachel Maddow to advocate for Medicare for all. She's not sent there to to raise awareness on anti-war rallies, to prop up mutual aid. They send her on Rachel Maddow to defend Biden's performance on the State of the Union. And then she went on there to decry how mean the Republicans was to her, to Biden. So that comment where it said, yeah, their job as the defender of Biden supersedes and creates all the other problems. That's a very accurate analysis, because that allows them to be weak on Ukraine. And they have to be the opposite as Matt Gaetz, who, this is going to be our next segment, because this actually rolls off of this segment really well. You have Matt Gaetz, who have the proposition to end the Ukraine war funding, but the AOC and the squad are bad on that issue because they have to be against him. That's how the game works. You need a face, you need a heel.
I don't know how they can be against him. I'll bring up your tweet just for the headline real quick, and then I'll pass it to pass the controls to you. But just to throw the headline up, how is this possible? When I saw this tweet from you, Nick, nigga, I just closed Twitter, man. I was like, this don't make no damn sense right here that Matt Gaetz is doing shit clearly that the left should be doing. Like, what is TYT and Sam? What are they saying about this? How can they spin this? Go ahead though, with your analysis.
That's why
this is the headline.
Yeah, that's why in my tweet, you see these people are cowards now. You did a segment on AOC refusing to debate Margie Taylor Green. Since when, as a worker movement, as a left movement, we supposed to be against the sharing of ideas? Like, Lenin was a famous debate me bro. Like, he loved to challenge people who misread Marx, who was getting revolutionary theory wrong, and to challenge liberal critics. Our job to spread our working class propaganda against this massive capitalistic propaganda campaign is to challenge their ideas directly. So you have AOC and Bernie Sanders and the squad that are essentially cowards who will never debate or defend their ideas. So imagine, and this is my tweet saying, imagine if Bernie, AOC, and Ro Khanna or any member of the NATO left, imagine Matt Duss. So I'm gonna show you here very soon. Imagine Matt Duss and them debating Matt Gaetz on this issue. And now think about how fucked our Overton window is. Where in this debate, you're gonna have Bernie, AOC, and the NATO left defend in debate against Matt Gaetz from the right, using neocon justifications against Matt Gaetz, the so-called far-right fascist who's advocating for peace and for fiscal responsibility on this issue. So imagine how bad the NATO left will look during this debate. This is why AOC don't want to debate Margie Taylor Green. Because what should easily be an easy debate, they'll get called out for Ukraine war funding. She'll call AOC out for her hypocrisy regarding funding Ukraine weapons, despite being a climate activist. Remember that Twitter burn that AOC never responded to when Margie Taylor Green was like, what is the carbon emissions for that Ukraine war package that you voted for? How does AOC respond to that?
This is why I say it's optics would be terrible. This is the reason why, Nick. And you're pointing out this is a point that I didn't think of when I was talking about the same sort of issue. Like I didn't think of this, but the optics would look terrible. That the left person would essentially be arguing the reactionary position, the warmonger position, and that's where we're at right now.
Position. They will be arguing the Mike Pompeo position. Meanwhile, Matt Gaetz will be arguing the Lula position. Matt Gaetz will be arguing the position of the global proletariat. 80% of the working class is not for this. 80% of the global population is not for this. And you have AOC, Bernie, and the NATO left arguing Mike Pompeo's, Anthony Blinken's position. Matt Gaetz arguing Lula's position. Like, you guys see how crazy the political Overton window is right now in discourse? And this confusion is by design. They try and sow confusion. That's why Matt Gaetz is allowed to do this.
Yeah, align what should be happening, align what a true anti-war person should be advocating for, and align that with the people we have labeled as crazy. The Margie Taylor Greens, the Matt Gaetz. That's essentially what they're doing. Go ahead, Nick.
So let's do this is Matt Gaetz and Lula in 80% of the world versus the NATO left versus Matt Duss. Because I'm gonna show you Lula trending right now. I see a video that we're probably gonna watch blind, which is kind of risky, but the video with Lula's going off on his Western criticism, why he advocates for peace. He's trending all over Twitter right now because he went to the White House. And he like, yo, no, we should be advocating for peace right now. He had a meeting with the Germany chancellor, and they got into a heated debate. I broke it down on Jimmy, where you had Lula was like, we are going to be neutral. We don't care if you're upset about it. What you guys are doing is unhinged. We should be advocating for peace instead of war. You want me to condemn Russia? Yes, I did it. Oh, I condemn Russia. Then now what? Are we advocating for peace? Which is some people disagree with that, but I see what Lula's doing tactically, right? So I can use strategy. Like I'm a tactician, I think, right? So Lula, he's like, I'm gonna condemn the Russian invasion, which some people are upset about, but he said I'm gonna put that off the table so the West can't even use that against me. Because if he doesn't say that, then the West can spend all their time saying Lula is a Russian puppet. Lula is a Russian puppet. Mm-hmm. But Lula's like, no, all right, I condemn Putin and what he does for the Russian invasion, but now I condemn you guys for not seeking peace. Now what? And they can't deal with that argument, which is actually a great chess move on behalf of Lula. But if you want to criticize him for critiquing the invasion, I think I see the chess move that he's doing. But now compare the position of Matt Gaetz and everyone who is having lost their damn mind, right? That's against escalating war against the nuclear power versus Matt Duss. Matt Duss, who was Bernie Sanders' foreign policy advisor.
That is just a joke, man. How is that even possible? Now, Nick, hold on before you play it.
Go ahead.
I must say, we did a segment on Matt Duss. Yep. We posted a video. We tagged him. He blocked us.
Oh,
he looked at the title and blocked the account and blocked the main RBN. Like, you know how we post the graphic and we tagged them. We tagged Marianne Williamson when she appeared. Like, we tagged him. He was the topic of the segment. Blocked us. Went back and it was like,
that's
blocked.
how you know he's not good faith. You would think that he would see these black hoodlums talking about foreign policy. What are your credentials? You would think he's like, I'm gonna go on there and school these kids that have no idea what they're talking about. No, he blocks us. Why would he do that if he's a good faith actor?
That to me tells me that the critique, and it was something like Matt Gaetz, like it was a pretty good title. The critique, he just said, "Oh, these guys know too much. I don't even need to engage." He was just like, "I don't even need to engage with this shit." Oh, they know this. Oh, man, I don't even need to engage.
I didn't know he blocked me. That makes my day.
Yeah, he just blocked us just from that. Like, we didn't even say nothing. We didn't engage. I didn't say nothing bad. It was the title of the video, and he was tagged. And then he just blocked us right. He blocked us right off of that. But go ahead.
I don't want to be like the Vanguard where people go look. They like, man, I know I'm gonna get an easy interview on the Vanguard. I know I'm gonna get an easy interview over here. We want the ruling class to be terrified of us. Where Matt does not even gonna try to come on and spread that bullshit. After Marianne Williamson, no one gonna even try to spread that bullshit. And that's why I want. We're not access journalists here. The fact that Matt does have to block us instead of defending his
just
horrible
off a
take,
title.
everything.
That's just so weak.
It shows everything about the professional managerial class. They have all your credentials, but they can't argue their position. I went on the Hill and debunked their bullshit rhetoric on Venezuela. I went on Destiny, who's a giant liberal streamer, destroyed his argument on U.S. and Russia. But these professional managerial class people can't defend their ideology to a college dropout. They can't defend their ideology to Margie Taylor Green. They scared of Nick Cruz and Margie Taylor Green. Does that show how weak the NATO left is?
Let me read what it says, Nick, before you go. So this is what it says. This is the title that he blocked this. Anna Kasparia, simps for Bernie Sanders neocon foreign policy advisor, Matt Duss. And he blocked. That's okay. Okay, so maybe that's why he blocked. So we call him a neocon foreign policy advisor.
Hey, man, you are where you are, bro. Don't be. Look at what he says right now. Look at what he says on Democracy Now! You want to tell me this guy not neocon? Like, listen to this. And I'm playing this before we get after the Matt Gaetz headline. So you see how you have the right that is having the position the left should have on calling for ending the funding the military-industrial complex, calling for oversight. Now the progressive left position is no oversight on weapons. The fuck? The fuck? Like, how did that make sense? So anyway, let's watch the video. I'd rather double check than have the audio mess up. So I'm gonna set the video up, and then it's only a minute, so we can let it play through, and then we can come in with some critiques. I think that would work.
Yeah, sure.
Your assessment of U.S. policy when it comes to Ukraine.
I think actually the president's version of it there, it tracks with the facts. I think the administration, as my colleague Stephen and I wrote in the piece that you referenced, the way the president has helped manage alliances and partnerships in response to Russia's invasion of last February, I think has been impressive. I think it shows a way of practicing U.S. leadership that forges consensus and then mobilizes that consensus. I mean, the war obviously is devastating. It is ongoing. We would like to see the war end as soon as possible, but I think being realistic about when that is possible is part of the challenge we face right now. I think Putin has given no evidence whatsoever that he's interested in a workable resolution of this conflict. I think he and the Russians and the Ukrainians at this point both seem to believe that they can continue to achieve their goals through military means. So for the time being, I think the administration's theory of the case is sound, which is that they'll continue to support Ukraine's defense to create the best possible moment or the best possible environment for negotiations. When that becomes...
This is...
Nick?
This was... I'll get you in here. This is Matt. This is Bernie Sanders' foreign policy advisor, dude. This guy who is now, his job is to be PR for Biden. Because I'm going to show you guys Lula, what he had to say, the criticism of 80% of the world's population, which shows what he's saying is bullshit. Where he said Biden has done a great job coalescing our allies. You mean Biden isolated us from the rest of the world? That is what he has done. He isolated us in a way that liberals said Trump would do. Like, you have Saudi Arabia, you have India, you have Africa that is now rejecting the United States and now looking for alternative trade policy. And you have South Africa doing military drills with Russia. You got Lula that is now willing to expand BRICS, an alternative system from SWIFT that is run by the United States and its allies. What Matt Gaetz said, everything he says, period, is the opposite of reality. He said Biden did a good job uniting our world allies. No, he pushed people away and turned everyone who stayed with him to a glorified United States colony. What he is saying here is unbelievable. And this is a minute and 20 seconds that I struggled
too.
Because everything he's saying is wrong. It's propaganda. And which is why I said in my original tweet, can you imagine this war simp, this war pig, Matt Gaetz, debating even Matt Gaetz on this issue? The same way that Matt Gaetz destroyed TYT, he will make someone as unserious as Matt Gaetz look good. Imagine this deeply unserious moron debating anyone who knows any history about Ukraine. We already saw. This is Aaron Mate. I'll read this tweet. I'll give your thoughts on this. And then I'm going to get to some other receipts here. Aaron Mate say on Democracy Now!, progressive proxy warrior. I love that. The progressive proxy warrior. Matt Gaetz calls Biden-Ukraine policy an impressive display of U.S. leadership, ignoring many sources like the Israeli prime minister on how NATO blocked peace. Thus says there's no evidence that Russia wants a workable solution. Once again, he just straight up, flat out lying to you guys.
And several people in the audience got the same reaction. I think I said this in another stream because we've covered him twice, and this is the third time we've covered him. Matt Gaetz. I said in the stream, and let me put this up. Yeah, I said before, like, this guy gives me a total alphabet crew vibe, like he's part of some group, FBI, CIA. Because what is the big thing now? To be a leftist, that's like the end thing. Yeah. So everybody projects from Pelosi to Hillary Clinton. I'm a progressive. Because that's the only way to sell something. Young people ain't trying to hear none of this shit if you ain't saying I'm progressive or I'm some sort of leftist or left-leaning or something like that. So it's like so this guy is completely created Matt Gaetz as a left, and he just wanted that on his credentials. Why do they keep introducing him like that when he got other credentials?
Yes.
That's purposely introducing him. Bernie Sanders, this is the left person. As he tells us all this neocon shit. I thought I put this up on the screen earlier, and I just realized I had it on a different one. So for earlier, when I referred to it and I read it, this is the actual graphic where he blocked us, and you can see where he's tagged here.
Yeah, so and the question after this, which should be obvious, right, is how did this guy get chosen as Bernie Sanders' foreign policy advisor? What was that about? Was that because I assume because they were friends, or did the establishment say, "Hey, this is your foreign policy advisor"? Either way, that's literally you guys realize that's the best case scenario for Bernie, right? The best case scenario that explains Bernie's decision is that establishment say, "Hey, this is your guy." The best for Bernie to explain Matt Gaetz is literally a conspiracy theory. So other than that, Bernie always planned on being part of the war machine. They was never serious about it. Which
in a professional managerial class, because he is the messiah of the professional managerial class. And what do we always say about them? They're willing to sell your ass out. And Bernie is the same one. So what they do is this. Look, they go like this, and this is what the people who have their needs met, who's not being brutalized by the police state or imperialism, they go, man, I know these capitalists ain't gonna let us get all of this and free this and stop the bombs. So I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go with them with this and get the best I can get with the rest of the shit. Marianne Williamson does this too. That's the deal they make.
Yep.
That's the deal they make. We're gonna go ahead and do this war stuff, because if we don't go with war stuff, we can't do nothing else, because they're gonna shut us out completely. They're gonna make us Ralph Nader. So we go with the war stuff so that we can get this other stuff through. That's why the nuance is on Israel. That's why there's nuance on Ukraine. You know what I mean? It's like they have chosen. They've said we are not going to fight that fight. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, and I'm going to interject a story. I'm going slightly out of order, but I think just because based on the flow of the conversation, I want to pull up the AOC Rachel Maddow video.
Yeah,
and I know you broke this down before, but I want to do a AOC. I want to do a Nick and CJ propaganda
Nick and CJ breakdown.
Because
yeah.
I saw this, I was like, Jesus fucking Christ! They have zero shame, and they 100% embraced their role as the PR agent of the Democratic Party. So, and the reason why I want to interject is because I think this video is good to show right after the Matt Dust interview on Democracy Now. So Matt Dust doesn't go on Democracy Now to criticize Biden for escalating World War III. He doesn't go on Democracy Now to advocate for the working class. Doesn't go on Democracy Now to advocate for Medicare for all. He goes on Democracy Now to tell you that Biden and the Democratic Party is doing a good job on Ukraine. You guys see the role of the NATO left, of the Democratic Party, of the Marianne Williamson strategy of sheep-herding people to this party so we can become PR agents at the end of the day? So you have Matt Dust doing PR for Biden on foreign policy, and you have AOC, who, instead of raising awareness about the fact that the border industrial complex is at record funding, Biden had funded ICE in the border industrial complex more than Donald Trump. NATO left, can you please repeat after me? I said Joe Biden had funded ICE in the border industrial complex more than Donald Trump. Now, AOC, who did photoshops at the border crying under Joe Biden, under Donald Trump, now she don't give a shit about that. Now she don't give a shit. Could not care. Instead, she's gonna go on Rachel Maddow, prime time. Rachel Maddow is the Tucker Carlson of the liberal news outlet. She's the only one who have numbers who come close. She doesn't beat Tucker, but she gets like millions of views. Everyone else is dead underwater. She's the only one who can have a podcast, who can do her own shit and still have an audience. She's the superstar of liberal propaganda. So AOC, come on there. This is your prime time, AOC. You say this as well. I love that you say this as well. This is your prime time. This is Rachel Maddow. Are you with us or are you against us? They're death for us. You want to see what AOC did? Look at this. This is after the State of the Union. RBN, we did a live reaction to the State of the Union, and we explained for about 2 hours everything that went wrong, and I could have went deeper. We could have went over. I could go over a fine. I can go over that speech and tell you everything he lied about. We did most of during that stream. Look at AOC on MSNBC, and let's see what she had to choose to focus on. It's only 6 minutes. That's another reason I want to cover it. Not a long segment, but it's very, very telling.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez standing by for us. I'm sorry about the delay getting to you, Congresswoman. We had this other thing happen. But thank you very much for being with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Our take from our studio view of the president's speech tonight was that it was unusually interactive. Lawrence O'Donnell used the word combative, described it as the most combative State of the Union speech that he'd ever seen. That was our impression from here. What was your impression in the room, and what did you make of the president's remarks?
Absolutely. I may not have served as many terms or have as much experience as other members, but this is my, fourth or fifth now, and I have never seen a State of the Union that was so disrupted by.
So, with all the problems that we have going on right now, CJ, millions homeless. You have 40% of Americans that is opting not to get health care because they can't afford it. And you want to know what AOC's priority is right now? People was mean to the president. You guys see this shit? You guys see how the professional managerial class care more about civility politics than anything else? That was mean to the president. That is AOC's message that she's sending on Rachel Maddow, one of the few people who actually get views on MSNBC. Unbelievable.
Clown shit.
Members of either party, even under President Donald Trump, we saw nowhere near the level of jeering, interruption, etc., that we saw by some of, I want to say the extreme elements of the Republican Party, but they are now being embraced and uplifted as the center of the Republican Party.
So you just acknowledge that they did something that you was not able to do, AOC. CJ, you hear what you just said? You guys will hear it again. Let me play that part again. I want you guys to acknowledge that AOC, you know that you're a failure. You was the left flank of the Democratic Party, and now you're politically homeless. You have no power. You are isolated. And Ilhan Omar just stripped over committees. Look what you said here.
We saw nowhere near the level of jeering, interruption, etc., that we saw by some of, I want to say the extreme elements of the Republican Party, but they are now being embraced and uplifted as the center of the Republican Party.
Now, why do you think that is, AOC? You have the far right, people who should be demonized, people like the Squad. What you see from the Lauren Boebert, Margie Taylor Green faction of the Republican Party is the exact same with the Squad, where the media trashes them, they're considered as outliers, but they rally and harness the pure power of their support. So Margie Taylor Green, despite the fact that New York Times hater, Washington Post hater, established Republicans hater, she was the #1 fundraiser in Congress. You guys understand that? Because people like AOC and Democrats popped her up. So despite the establishment hating them, she said, we're going to harness our people power. We're going to fundraise a ton of money. We're going to get people on our side. And we're going to force political power on the establishment. We don't give a fuck what they say. And look at what it got them. Margie Taylor Green on high-level committees. The right-wing faction stronger than ever. Your strategy of being nice to the establishment got you where? You guys see how the NATO left, the boutique left, have no ability to critically think or learn. They're going to continue doing the same strategy, and they're going to be, oh my God, why is the far right so strong? Why they're weak? Because they're being nice to King Jeffries.
That last one. But Nick, to your point, and to point out a couple of other things.
Go ahead.
If you notice in this interview, AOC seems different. It's just a different vibe. It's like she understands she's on a big stage, she understands that, look, I have now fully embraced my role as the left representative to go on corporate media, but I understand I have to always be delivering a great message. And what was the first thing she has to get in? The first thing she has to get in is that you guys did not treat the president right. And that's a big thing. Civility politics is a big thing in this red-blue game. And you notice how Democrats lean heavily on that, because to them it's morality. It's about living above the fray. Now I'm gonna bring your thing down. You can put it right back up. I just want to show you this headline. The same thing in Humanist Report. Look what his headline. He's pointing out how the GOP was so mean to Biden.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
The same thing. When you said that, I was like, I'm gonna set him up for this Humanist Report. Yes, look at the graphic, says trashy and downright embarrassing. And then the title is the GOP's most trashiest moments from Biden's State of the Union.
Have you guys seen UK Parliament? When you saw the State of the Union, is every single fucking day in the UK Parliament. Meanwhile, these pussies are like, oh my God, they are so mean. Where is their decorum? Are you kidding me?
Yes. Now, let's just say if this was Bernie people heckling him, would they be saying that? Would they be kind of leaning on civility politics? But this is the issue, Nick. With the professional sort of managerial class, if they're willing, you see how they're willing to use a ruling class tactic, because they're aspiring to be part of the ruling class. The petty bourgeoisie uses a lot of the ruling class tactics, and this is one of them. Civility politics. Look at what you guys are doing, and that makes us difference.
Yep.
Because we're civil and you're not, you Trump supporters. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
I'm gonna go back to the video, because there's a lot of breakdown, literally just 1 minute in. but it gets much worse. I don't know exactly how far you got into it, but I don't know how far you got into it.
Probably about halfway. Maybe.
But it gets so much worse. So much worse. We literally just getting warmed up. And like you said, she's different because she knows this is her prime time audition. She already getting likes and retweets from people like Dave Weissman, Lincoln Project.
Good
people
Lord.
love her now. So after the State of the Union, which is one of the biggest political events of the electoral year, right? She's sent on Rachel Maddow, so this is a giant performance. That's why she got to make sure shit is tight. That's why you don't see normal. You got to make sure you make sure you're not playing around here. To be honest, the same thing what happens whenever I go on like George Galloway, whenever I go on the Hill. I'll be honest with you guys. You guys know
that's true.
I talk
that's true.
I try to be calmer when I'm on the Hill. I'm honest with you guys. I go on these platforms. I'm like, all right, I got a strategy. Can't scare people. So I have the same radical message, but I talk slower. I try to be more welcoming to people. It's a different strategy for a different audience. That is what AOC is doing on Maddow because she want to be accepted by them. Isn't that what does that say? But let's continue the video.
And it's really shocking. Even the things that the overall Republican Party refused to stand for, paying public school teachers, public health policy, basic education policy, raising the wage for some of our.
Look at how vague she's being. Why are you not saying Medicare for all? Ending homelessness. You see, she's she's working on stuff like healthcare policy, whatever the fuck that means. You guys see this shit?
This is called giving cover. It's called giving cover to the Democratic Party because if she says Medicare for all, they're not for it. That's not giving cover. But if you just vaguely say healthcare, blah, 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 now you can include the Obamacare. Now you can include whatever Democrats they can co-opt it. You can't make it. You got to leave it co-optable. You get what I'm saying? Your language, you got to leave it co-optable. And that's what she's been training. All the way from her hair to her makeup to her outfit. It's not the same. Go on her Twitter and look at the shit she posted of herself. She don't look like this.
Yep.
She understands what she's doing here. And she fully accepts this role. And it was also proven on that committee. If you remember the clip, I know you've seen the clip when she was on the committee and she was talking about the Twitter files and Hunter Biden, completely defending that. Is completely ridiculous that she's defending that. But that's because she's fully accept her role. Go ahead, Nick.
And the Marianne Williamson left, the people who still apologize. Like Marianne Williamson still apologizing for Bernie and AOC, and she think I'm gonna let her get away with that shit. And they want to pretend that we don't see this. They want to pretend that everyone don't see AOC and Bernie Sanders being unapologetic fucking simps for the establishment now. And then she look at me like I'm crazy when I bring up obvious criticism of Bernie. Well, that's just your opinion. That's your opinion. You don't vote for me. They want to pretend that this shit is not happening. Let's continue because, guys, it literally get way worse. Like she's warming up. The first minute when she was attacking Republicans, she's getting her feet wet. Then she really go into PR overdrive mode, and I could not believe this. That's why I was like, bro, I gotta do this breakdown on Nick and CJ. This is unbelievable. Watch this.
And for paying public school teachers, public health policy, basic education policy.
What does that mean?
Raising the wage for some of our lowest paid workers in the United States.
Do that.
This should be really basic stuff, sky is blue kind of stuff. And the Republican Party, I think, really showed the country who they are tonight, that they have been taken over and that this isn't some right wing. This is the ethos of the modern Republican Party.
They've been taken over compared to what? The George W. Bush Republicans? Get the fuck out of here with that. That's literally apologia for the Karl Rove era. There's no difference. In fact, George W. Bush Jr. was more efficient than Trump. Like Dick Cheney was more efficient than Mike Pompeo and these people, right? But anyway, I'll continue the video. I hate that talking point so much because you're not being tough on Republicans when you say that. You're apologizing for the former GOP. they got taken over. Get the fuck out of here.
We did see the president focus on economic issues and sort of bread and butter issues and working families, middle-class families, practical issues throughout almost the duration of his speech. He talked a little bit about Ukraine. He talked a little bit about the Roe versus Wade decision for a little bit. He spent considerable time on police violence and trying to get some sort of police reform. But we really saw him talk about nuts and bolts stuff, kitchen table stuff, wages, dignity of work, jobs, healthcare costs, access to healthcare. I have to imagine that in your district, given its profound diversity, both ethnic and economic diversity, that has to be sort of I'm guessing that has to be welcome, just in terms of that.
Can you pause it before she answers?
Yeah.
So this is pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
But this illustrates how the media and politicians, and in particular her specifically, the media is using the most or the second most leftist radical in elected person in public view to whitewash this bullshit as virtue signaling for the Biden administration. Look, the leftist is saying all this stuff about the speech. That's what she's being used as, and she knows she's being used as that, and that's pretty disgusting. Go ahead,
That's so disgusting. Like, that's such a good point, CJ. Why did they bring on a random Democrat from Montana or some shit? Or any they bring AOC on? She's like, oh my god, you are the advocate of the left. You're the district diverse. They will love Biden's agenda, won't they? And think about the question: how is this not state TV? How do people think that Russia and China got worse media than we do? This question right here is why I say the United States is the most propagandized country in the world. You have the media, which is supposed to be oppositional to power. She brings power on to be like, hey, can you agree that Biden is great? Hey, you got a diverse district. You are the lefty representative. Can you please help us manufacture consent for Biden? The United States is the most propagandized country in the world. This is the worst example of state TV you could find. Let's go back to the question again, and we play AOC's answer, which is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like, I know AOC is a sellout, but every time I see her do new sellout shit, I'm still shocked. But she be on that new sellout shit. I'm
like, on that new shit, son.
New shit. Like, even you guys see how I correct. I'm still shocked when I see this stuff. Like, I'm gonna go back 10 seconds so you guys hear the question. And then let's listen to her answer a little bit and look how she unapologetically knows her role here.
Your district, given its profound diversity, both ethnic and economic diversity, that has to be I'm guessing that has to be welcome, just in terms of that being such a large focus of the president's remarks.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I do think that the forcefulness of some of the language that he used, calling out big pharma by name, really naming these caps that we have passed on the price of insulin, on out-of-pocket costs, it is powerful. And this is some of the most animating issues that touch the material reality of everyday Americans. I think he did a good job of that, but also not letting off corporate greed, as, you know, he called.
When we did our RBN Live, we explained how Big Pharma make record profits under Biden, and we were calling him out for his lies. But AOC, what she does in manufacture consent and tell you that he is telling you the truth. This is disgusting.
Called out the profit margins of big oil. I mean, I think that it was definitely impactful, and it was surprising, I think, even to some of us, compared to some of his past State of the Unions.
Biden is responsible for big oil profits. I just covered this. How big oil raking in massive profits because of Biden's policies. This is crazy. I want to continue though.
Something I just referenced a moment ago. But
I think this is the next part right here. We see AOC go full Biden defense. This next part is the worst part though. The first two questions expose AOC's role and how unapologetic she is at doing that role. The next part shows how low she is willing to sink. Just listen to this. I think it literally speaks for itself. It's so.
I'll just ask you in detail about what you thought about the president's lengthy and I thought quite empathetic remarks about police violence. He talked about how members of law enforcement are risking their lives when they put on the shield and that they deserve to come home just like the communities they protect. But community members deserve to come home too. And there have been too many people killed and it's not getting better fast enough.
Can you pause that?
It
is so terrible, the framing how she just said is that she described it as let's talk about the police reform he's doing. And the first thing she talks about police reform is how he talks about police need to come home.
Yes.
And you notice is police need to come home and everybody else too, when it should be the other way around. The two person is secondary. You see what I'm saying? If you say two, that's for the secondary person. That she's saying the police reform and Tyre Nichols' death that prompted all of this, police reform. And then you say police need to come home because they're risking their lives. Are we talking about a police that died? Are we talking about a person that died? This is pretty disgusting.
Yeah, this is
pretty disgusting right here.
This is exactly why I put Rachel Maddow up there with Tucker Carlson and Joe Scarborough. I told you, this is the worst part of the whole interview. Anything else is just funny bad. Like, anything else is funny bad. This is like anger-inducing bad. Especially AOC's answer, which we didn't even get to yet. Because we explained earlier why Biden disrespects the black community more than Republicans do. Because you guys are funding the police more, and you guys written the policies that kill Tyre Nichols. And then you guys use his death and suffering and put his parents out there as a political prop to manufacture political support for a bill that funds his killers more. Keep that in context as you watch this disgusting segment here. So I'll go back just a little bit so you hear this propaganda question and listen to instead of explaining that, listen to how AOC. Anyway, I don't want to spoil it.
Listen. Are risking their lives when they put on the shield and that they deserve to come home just like the communities they protect. But community members deserve to come home too. And there have been too many people killed and it's not getting better fast enough. And he spent a lot of time engaging with Tyre Nichols' parents who were there in the gallery watching. And we know so many other family members of people who've been killed by police were there tonight in the room to pay witness. What do you make of the president's remarks and about what he's substantively proposing?
You know, I was surprised by the president's remarks and his focus on reform, or focus on justice, and really his focus on centering the families that have been so deeply impacted by police violence and police brutality, and really centering this discussion around reform. If you contrast that with his speech just a year ago, where, you know, this two-dimensional frame of fund or defund, and it was, we're going to fund the police, this is a very different conversation, and one that advocates have been asking for a long time. See what is happening on the ground. See and acknowledge the reality that our communities are experiencing, and that this is a problem that has gone unaddressed for far too long. And so for him to stand up there, to name, you know, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which...
Bruh. That's what she did.
Bruh.
She just did a diatribe of stuff that he had nothing to do with Joe Biden and connected and tried to make it seem like that's the takeaway from what Biden. Are y'all motherfucking serious? These motherfuckers gonna get us killed, Nick.
This is look at what she just did. She quoted the George Floyd policing bill. Listen to this. She quoted it.
That our communities are experiencing, and that this is a problem that has gone unaddressed for far too long. And so for him to stand up there, to name, you know, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which
gives the police more money. Joe Biden took COVID relief money and gave it to the police, over 50% of it. And so AOC starts out by saying, oh, well, Biden, they should be caught up on this concept of funding or defunding the police. I'm glad he's over that. No, he's not. He's literally promoting a bill that funds the police more. This is disgusting propaganda. This is why we say they're worse than Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin and the neoliberals couldn't pull this shit off, CJ. They couldn't pull this shit off. This is unbelievable. Joe Biden, who is writing the policy, who created this presidential complex, AOC is coming up here and using Tyree Nicole's parents grieving as a shield to prop up the Biden administration and put favor on the George Floyd Policing Act, which does the same thing you say that Democrats shouldn't do. Fund the police more, which she knows. And this is how you know, this next part, how you know she knows the propaganda is bad. Like, their propaganda is eating at her soul somewhere, if there's anything in there. Because look at the part where she kind of catches herself, like, holy shit, I can't believe I just said that. Listen to this.
The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which in and of itself, advocates already believe that it doesn't really go far enough to address.
So why are you propping it up? You guys see that? That's her inner conflict right there. You want to say it again? That's an inner conflict.
In and of itself, advocates already believe that it doesn't really go far enough to address the core underlying issues. But
details, AOC. So it doesn't go far enough. Why? Because it funds the police more. It doesn't do anything to prevent the problem that we were trying to solve. But she can't say that because if she says that, it is debunks everything she said previously. Do you guys see this unbelievable shit? This is the highest level of propaganda out there right now. This is some new shit, son. This is the new propaganda shit that only AOC, Bernie, and the squad can pull off. Joe Manchin can't pull this shit off. We only got a little bit left. Let's see how we can let it finish because I think I got most of my primary critique. I'll let play.
Still, for him to name this legislation, it's a long way from just a year ago where it was really just about how much more money can we pile into these local departments.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Issue. I also think it's an acknowledgement of the fact that this isn't really connected to funding much at all in terms of how we actually lower these instances of horrific violence in communities. And so I thought it was encouraging. I know myself and some other members were kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. We felt like there was kind of this wind up and that there was going to be a but. And I think we were very relieved and surprised that there was no but, that there was just an acknowledgement that this is actually a problem. And
bro, this is nothing but PR for Biden.
Shit. So they are trying to talk the population, and this is what they do. She's basically talking the population into saying nothing tangibly is going to happen, but the fact that he didn't even say fund the police, we're coming a far way, baby. It's a constant trying to convince people that nothing happening is something happening. That's what we're doing, and that's the constant selling of incrementalism. But this is pretty disgusting because she delivers a word salad of perfection. This is like some high-class word salad here because you think it makes sense until you repeat it and say, let me try to derive what she's trying to tell me, and you cannot understand what she's trying to tell you about the Joe Biden administration. Go ahead.
And the constant contradictions, which is I'm glad we're not talking about funding more, but she brings up a policy that funds the police more, ignoring the massive part that Biden is funding the police more, took COVID money to fund the police more. But then she's trying to pretend that Biden is a good guy on this issue. You guys see why she's so dangerous. You guys see why RBN spends so much time calling out these people. AOC should be our number one focus. Who's doing propaganda better than this? They got young people that actually believes it. And people say RBN is toxic. RBN always
talking about them.
Oh my God, why RBN always calling out AOC? You guys see this shit? This is why. No one is doing more toxic propaganda against the working class than AOC and Bernie Sanders right now.
Like, what do they expect us to sit back and just let this happen? Let people say
they mad that RBN exists. They mad that we exist because we're calling out this BS. If RBN wasn't here, you still have left people like Marianne Wilson. So
and David Sirota.
If it wasn't for us. That's why we're here to explain to you guys why we have any criticism, why AOC is such a threat. This what she just did there is more anti-black than anything I've seen any politician done this year. Like,
but I would say even because you're naming some of the people, if RBN wasn't here, I would say even the squad, because before RBN, the people criticizing the squad was Jimmy. Oh, that's a white racist right winger. Now we're on the block. We're like, what do you got to say? We're so
now they say we Jimmy Dorites, ignoring literally. Ignoring people like Lee Cam, Maury Kimberly, ignoring all
who's been on the show more than anybody, Margaret Kimberly.
Yeah, we had Danny Haifong on, Gerald Horn on. We had Savvy talked to Chris Hedges. We had Dr. Cornel West on. Like it's literally endless. But people are like, oh, Jimmy Dorite, because they want to. They were like, oh, Jimmy is bad guy. He criticized AOC and Bernie, so they're not bad. So then we come out, we're like, no, fuck that bullshit. Fuck that bullshit. This is what the workers feel like. This is what the workers feel like, and we debunk their entire nonsense, which is why people like Matt does block us. They can't even give us a hearing.
I can't believe that.
They can't even give us a hearing. Now, my last thought on the topic is a comment on something that you pointed out to kind of combine our breakdowns. Because I didn't watch the whole segment. I watched a little bit, as much as I could. But you brought up how AOC is Nancy Pelosi, and I love that point. I want to include that in this segment as well, because my good friend Thea, she called this out a long time ago. She's like, dude, I'm telling you, AOC about to be the next Nancy Pelosi. Because if you look at the old footage, Nancy Pelosi was speaking out for single-payer health care. Yeah. And Nancy Pelosi was considered a progressive because Nancy Pelosi was showing up at gay pride parades. And remember, this was in the 1980s. In the 1980s, America was deeply homophobic. So think about this.
Courtesy, Dr. Fauci contributed to that shit.
Yeah. Great point. Yeah, great point, CJ. So think about it in terms of American public perception at that time. You had a young Nancy Pelosi who stood up for gay rights when that was deeply unpopular. She was talking about single-payer health care in the middle of a Reagan economics. So she was considered a progressive, even though she wouldn't be considered a social democrat now. You got to consider the times, right? With her position, she was considered literally like an AOC kind of politician.
Right.
And then that is so crazy to say now because we see the insane transformation. Look at AOC now. Compare to AOC. That 5 years later, that compared to her Jimmy Dore interview. Compare AOC interview with Glenn Greenwald compared to her appearance with Rachel Maddow. Two completely different people. So Matt, and your point you made, which is great, imagine what it's going to look like in 15 years. Nigga, we just seen, it's been 5 years. Guys, she got elected in 2018. Nigga, she sold out in record time. Imagine 15 years. Imagine.
And we have to remember the word liberal, because when we're talking about in this context, you might be thinking liberal and progressive, yeah, they're still different. Understand the word liberal in the 80s means what the word progressive means today.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the same meaning. So even though today we're thinking liberal is a different sort of slightly to the left of progressive, but if you're talking liberal at the time, when she was called a liberal, is what we would consider a progressive today. Just think about Medicare for all now is considered a progressive issue. Think about when she was saying it 40 years ago. That was considered that. Gay pride, you think everybody's for gay pride now.
Yeah.
Wasn't that way back then. Not even for Democrats. Not even for the majority of Democrats.
Too.
Go ahead.
It was considered politically risky as well. It was like, oh my God. It's like when AOC did her sit-in on it and Pelosi offers, like it was an early risky gambit, and that paid off for her, right? So when people bring up the fact that Nancy Pelosi used to be progressive, the reaction, especially for younger people who don't know history, is like, whoa, what? I still remember when I first saw the Nancy Pelosi single-payer healthcare speech, like maybe a few years ago. I was like, bro, what? I was like, a what moment? Like, holy shit, what? So, guys, in 20 years from now, when I think they call it Gen A, I don't know the official name for the generation after Gen Z. So Gen A or whatever gonna be coming up in the next 20 years, and then people gonna be like, you remember when AOC used to be a progressive? And then they're gonna be like, bro, no way. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez,
be like, she was a progressive?
You mean the warmonger Speaker of the House? No way. And then we show footage from no further. Look at this interview that she did on Glenn Greenwald, and then they can look at that interview like a historic relic. Like, oh my God, you guys see what Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, the neoliberal sellout, what she used to say? It's gonna be the same thing, guys.
That's exactly what's gonna happen. That's exactly what's gonna happen.
That's my last segment for today.
Let's I got maybe one or two more segments, but let me get to some super chats because they have built up. Nick,
Yeah, go
It's
ahead.
a bunch of super stickers. Let's toss them up. So thank you for this super sticker. Sanctions do allow for humanitarian aid.
So that probably I don't know if the West is using that as an excuse, but according to a lot of reporting, there are a lot of Western countries that want to help, but they're afraid of being punished by the United States for helping out Syria. The same with Yemen. Like there are all these countries that want to help, but they didn't want to get on the bad favor of the United States. So thank you for the super chat, though.
Thanks for the super sticker. I think that's Fionula. I think that is. Thank you. Thank you for this super chat, Marvin. Professional managerial class equal oligarchs, elite lackeys. I'm with that name. I'm with that. Insula cap is only for seniors already. That just the point that they love to point out that the insulin is capped, that this amount is for a specific niche amount of people, is not for a vast majority. And Fionula, another super sticker. Thank you for that super sticker. And then this one here, AOC is not being a good representative for our Puerto Rican community. Boricua that pay attention don't trust her. Boricuas who pay attention don't trust her. And that's great to hear.
You have people in AOC's district that call her out, like our friend Lucy. Many Puerto Rican leftists that call her out. The same way that there's Somali people that call out Ilhan Omar. Meanwhile, you have the white left, the boutique left, who are not connected to any of these issues, that tell people like, "Oh my God, these people are amazing." That way you get a crystal ball, the Kyle Kalinskis, the Mike Figueredos, the people that disconnected from these communities, speaking for people of color, saying, "Oh my God, AOC and them amazing." Is that something? Big shout out to Reflect the Sun. Very generous super sticker here. Everyone shows some love to Reflect the Sun.
Oh, absolutely. I didn't even see that. It must be new. Oh, yeah.
It just came in. It just came in. So
yeah, so absolutely. Thank you. Show some love in the chat for that great super sticker. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I have one announcement for tomorrow because that's my last story for today. I'm gonna cover the Lula Ukraine story tomorrow. We're also gonna have Kit from Harlan's Media. He will be joining us tomorrow. So it's been a while since we did Nick and Kit. We always have great conversations. We also have another guest I'm working on as well. I literally might have two guests.
It's not confirmed. You don't want to give it away yet. If it's not confirmed, maybe. Oh, here goes another super chat.
Professor Zankis. I was trying to pull up my menu. Yeah, so Zankis may join us as well. So Zankis and Kit from Heartlands Media, and also going to be breaking down the story. I don't want to do it now because I got to go here soon. I don't want to rush the story. Because I'm going to cover Lula. His White House visit that is currently ongoing, breaking right now.
Yeah, that's gonna be fire right there. I'm looking at some of this stuff.
So you can join if you want to, CJ. I don't know if you want to take a day off or not, but I'm gonna talk about that with Kid and maybe have Zank as well with us. Maybe have kind of like a roundtable. Break that story down. Maybe some other breaking news tomorrow. I'll stay for that story, and after that.
This story is literally. I just want to read some parts of this article and get your reaction because you haven't read it. Some of the shit right here you're gonna hear is gonna be outrageous. Let me read this last super chat and I'll get to the story. Darren says, "Thank you for the super chat. What you guys think of inviting Bob TV on Twitter to one of your shows? I think he would be a good fit with your crew." Now, I guess we can consider. We just have to look and see who he is. I don't know who he is. I would have to look up. Yeah, I would have to look up who that is. But I know you know who Do Dissonance is, and I do think because they kind of have humor with their things. I think that it would be cool if we did like a segment or a show, an episode.
Yeah, I wanted to reach out to them.
It would be kind of funny.
Yeah, I thought JB had them on. They was on my guest list. I finally got Lee Camp on. I got guest list. I'm trying to get all these people on. So Do Dissonance we definitely gotta do something with them soon. Yeah. They did a great breakdown of our Marianne interview. So
yeah, that's where I watched. They actually have a couple of good breakdowns. They did another one of Jimmy Dore just yesterday. I saw that one. The smear campaign on Jimmy Dore. But let me do a couple of announcements. Let's like the stream. We're at 339 likes. We got several hundred people who haven't liked We've had 812 unique users visit us. So we have a lot of room for more likes. So let's see if we can up that by 50. Let's go to 390. Let's see if we can go to 390. 50 people hit that like button to get us to 390. The other thing is join our Substack so you get notifications when we go live or when we have clips that drop. We might have some clips drop later tonight, so make sure you're on the Substack. You also get the Discord link. This is our subscriber count. Thank you for subscribing, those that are brand new. And then we're going to be ending with this story here. I can bring up the headline. And I'm going to throw up some of your comments in just a second here. But 390 is the new target for likes. So if you hit that like button, 50 more people, we can get us to 390. And then let's look at a couple of more of your oh, there's another super chat. I'm sorry, super chat. Thank you, Peter, for your super chat. Bowling car, earth. I think that's a dial pad. And a car and bowling, I think that's, or not bowling, the 8 ball. But thank you for that super chat. Got a lot of good super chats today. A lot of good comments, actually. Just love RBN knocking around the left pundits and politicians in the middle of dropping knowledge. Best way to educate on a stream. In the middle of dropping knowledge. Sorry to misspeak here. Nick, let me just read this article. I'll read a couple of paragraphs. Let me know when you want to stop and comment. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'm here listening. This would be a good one.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here that is just eye-opening still, even though it's the United States empire, it's still kind of eye-opening. But stepping up U.S. war preparation against China, Victoria Nuland visits South China. U.S. Secretary of State and Political Affairs, Victoria Nuland, visited Nepal, India, and Sri Lanka between January 28th and February 1st before traveling to Qatar. Her trip coincided with U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's recent trip to South Korea for high-level meetings with President of South Korea and Defense Minister Lee Jong-seok. I think that's how you say it. Nuland, who served under the former U.S. President Barack Obama and George W. Bush, is infamous for her aggressive pursuance of Washington's geopolitical interests.
She's one of the worst.
Yeah, she's one of the worst. She played a key role in the 2004 fascist-led coup that overthrew the pro-Russian Ukraine government of President Viktor Yanukovych. I think that's how you say it. In 2013, Nuland bragged that Washington had invested over $5 billion in the Ukrainian opposition. And in 2014, she was recorded on a telephone call with the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Pratt, selecting the head of a post-coup government and discussing U.S. collaboration with neo-fascist forces like the.
She also was one of the people, literally during the Senate hearing, that was celebrating the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
I saw that clip. I remember that clip.
She's every time the United States is there doing some shit wrong, Victoria Nuland is there cheering it on. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, so now it's kind of fast forward. It gives you a background of her. Now kind of fast forward to the Nepal visit. Nuland spent January 29th and 30th in Nepal, where she met with Prime Minister Dahal. I'll just say that. I'll use the last name, Dahal, and several other officials. She was the highest-ranking foreign dignitary to visit the country since Dahal's election as Prime Minister December 25th. In Kathmandu, she denounced unnamed autocrats for trying to change global rules by force, a provocative reference to Beijing and Moscow. Washington repeatedly and falsely promotes its political and military aggression against Russia as missions to defend democracy.
Yeah. and then the dumbest people in the population believes it. And people like Matt Duss will actually go out there and tell you that.
And regurgitate it. Yeah. Underscoring...
They'll tell you, just real quick.
No, go ahead. The
United States send weapons to Ukraine to defend democracy against the government that banned opposition parties, banned opposition media, and banned the Orthodox Church. But we're defending democracy by supporting them. That's the ridiculousness they will tell you.
It's laughable. Underscoring U.S. efforts to enlist Nepal in military strategic offense against China, Nuland declared, quote, "It's enormously important for the U.S. to have partners like Nepal, sandwiched between China and India. Nepal is caught in the intensifying strategic conflict between the U.S. and India on one side and China on the other." Nuland, here it gets to the communist part. I'm sorry. Nepal is receiving heightened attention from Washington since Dahal, that's the president, the newly elected president, leader of the Communist Party of Nepal, Maoist, became prime minister with the support of KP Sharma Ali, head of the pro-China Communist Party of Nepal, United Marxist-Leninists. They're just telling you who they are. It was expected that Dahal would become prime minister, backed by Sher Bahal Doli, leader of the pro-Indian Nepali Congress. The U.S. and India fear that Dahal's government will be closely aligned with Beijing, and there is a problem, Nick. They need Nepal to be on board with this, and they fear that this Maoist Communist Party newly elected leader is going to be aligned and closely aligned with Beijing. And why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? You know?
Why wouldn't they?
I mean, it's a good assumption. I mean, he is a Maoist. On February 5th, a few days after Nuland's visit, United States Agencies for International Development Chief Samantha Powers arrived in Kathmandu. Nepal is due to receive $500 million under the U.S. Millennial Challenge Corporation project. Washington has also agreed to provide another $659 million in economic assistance through the same organization in the next 5 years. The aid is clearly aimed at undermining the influence of China, which remains Nepal's largest foreign investor. So you see them, Nick, right here, trying to infuse this money, trying to bribe, as capitalists will do, just like they bribe defendants to dime out their other, to rat on it. It's the same thing. They're trying to use capital to pull these people away from the influence of China, and it's pretty disgusting. I'll read this last part and then kind of go to you and get you any thoughts for you before we close out here. On January 31st, Nuland traveled to India, where she met with External Affairs Minister, I won't even say the name, and later Foreign Secretary Vinay Kawatra. Media reports said Nuland and the External Affairs Minister discussed the Indian subcontinent, the Indo-Pacific, and the, quote, many points of convergence in the Indian-U.S. relationship. This is the U.S. preparing, but it also feels like, Nick, they're afraid. And they're afraid that they're not going to be able to, without the support from people like Nepal, they're not going to be able to have the sort of war or have the sort of strategic war that they want to have against China. Not that they're in a good state anyway, even with Nepal. I'm just saying this would just be another thing if they're not able to get the support from them. That is just like the signs on the wall is like, we're not going to win any war with China, and this is just a disaster. But your thoughts on what you heard?
In moments like these, while I'm glad that the U.S. empire actually does not have a meritocracy, can you imagine if actually very smart people climbed the ladder and they was good at manipulating geopolitical events? The actions of the Biden administration in the United States have been literally mind blowing and wild to watch, because they made this miscalculation and they thought that once Russia invaded Ukraine, that the entire world, including India and a lot of these countries, will stop doing business with Russia, cut off China, join the West, and they miscalculated by the tune of 80% of the world's population. So that's why I asked a few people, me and Jimmy, we had this conversation where we literally don't know if they tanked this shit on purpose, or was they really dumb enough to think that they was going to win economic war with the growing China and Russia, despite the fact that the United States barely produce anything anymore. So what we're seeing with the fall of the United States empire, and now just the insane rise of China, the smart moves of Putin and Russia, it also just raw incompetence beyond the United States. They made a ton of profits with the weapon defense contractors. They won because of the Iraq war and the war on terror. But these things like the drug war, the war on terror, these things weaken the United States as a nation. It enriched their friends and them, but it allowed countries like China and Russia and the new geopolitical world order to develop. So this only was possible because of Western incompetence. Imagine if the United States, with all its resources, actually had the China model, where it's like, we're going to lift all our working class out of poverty. We're going to build relationship based on respect for sovereignty and uplifting people out of poverty. The United States would still be strong. There wouldn't be this competition. It's Reaganomics and economic imperialist ambitions and the incompetent morons who ran the government led to the position we are now, where countries are now resisting the U.S. empire. People are now seeing through the United States nonsense, and people like Lula in South Africa is emboldened to speak up against that, which I will cover more tomorrow. But that's all I have. CJ.
Yeah, and it's terrifying, but it's curious to me that Victoria Nuland keeps showing her face in these conflicts, and like she's like the main person that's kind of leading these things. It's very chilling to me.
Is a good comment.
Go ahead.
This is a good comment as well. Literally, if not for China, the United States would be an unstoppable force for imperial capitalism. Show me the lie. I don't think that's a lie at all. In fact, that's a big reason why a lot of countries want to do business and help China grow and expand, because they're like, shit, I'd rather have China be the unipolar power. And even if they have criticisms of China, because a lot of these countries in Africa that do business with China are capitalist, CJ. So it's like not even about ideology to them. It's like, yeah, we capitalist, China market socialist. We may not have the same ideology, but our ideology is fuck the United States and China will help us get there. So that's a lot of truth in there. But go ahead, CJ. Any final thoughts? Tomorrow for my announcements, once again, Kit from Heartland Media, Professor Zankis may join the conversation as well. I'm gonna break down I also want to bring more receipts, because this is a story I read kind of before. I'm gonna bring a lot more receipts, read up on it. We're gonna cover Lula dissent against the West. Now I'm very interested in seeing the response he's getting, because I see trending everywhere right now. So I'm gonna get more receipts from corporate media. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, hopefully we can get to the Matt Gaetz. So we didn't get to it today. I just realized that we didn't get to the Matt Gaetz.
We pulled up for a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. You know what? We did. Now that I think about it, what we didn't do is go into a more of a discussion specifically of him and what he did. We just kind of just used it as a thing.
We discussed it. We can always go into on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Just to show the headline, we will go in more depth about this, even though we kind of briefly talked about it. I just want everybody to know we didn't forget about that topic. We will go in depth a little more, because it's pretty bad, and I would love for us to read this one on antiwar.com, because I know there's a lot of people writing up about it, but that write up just the squad has been thoroughly called out showed up, by just a better way, by the Freedom Caucus, and it just continues to happen, and there's no way that they can combat it. This is why she doesn't want to debate her. This is why they have their henchmen, even in left media, the NATO left, they can't even really do content on them. Yeah, exactly. They're that bad. But that's all I got.
I'll pass to you to close this out. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Absolutely. All right, Nick. So let's see if I have any closeout material for everybody today. Yeah, let's use this this video here with Ned Price, and I swear he is the worst representative for the State Department. he clearly tells lies, and you can see on his face when he's lying. So he is one of the worst representatives that I've seen for the State Department in this capacity. Toss and let us know where you're watching us from. I'm going to throw those comments up as this video plays, where you're from. So comments 203 or 503 and after will throw up. So 503 and after. Where you're living at, state and city. If you want to give the city, country you're in, toss that in the comments, and I will pop that up on the screen as this video closes us out for today. Nick and CJ Fridays with Lee Camp.
I'm sure you're aware of the new report from Seymour Hersh, how America took out the Nord Stream pipeline and the White House's denial of any involvement, given the longstanding U.S. opposition to the pipeline. Secretary Blinken's calling its demise a tremendous opportunity, and Undersecretary of State Nuland's saying that the U.S. officials were pleased with the destruction of the pipeline, especially the sweet and secretive investigation. Do you think the U.S. government's denial of involvement is credible?
I absolutely do, and I repeat it here. Anything else?
Let me follow up on that, if I might. Have you or anybody else at the State Department any communication with German, Norwegian ambassadors or other allies or officials on this matter?
On the matter of Nord Stream 2?
On the matter of the latest allegations, which give a fairly, I mean, it's one anonymous source. It is a fairly
it would not be it would not be typical for us to engage allies and partners on something that is utter and complete nonsense and that should be rejected out of hand by anyone who is looking at it through an objective lens. Yes, go ahead.
One more aspect on this. One of the allegations that Hersh makes is that it was taken off the CIA in order to prevent involvement, oversight as a covert operation. Did you read the piece?
I'm familiar with it.
One of his allegations is that it was taken off.
Rather than let this propaganda be aired in the briefing room, but let me just say it is a fundamental misunderstanding of oversight in our U.S. Congress. Beyond getting his facts entirely wrong, as he has before in very high-profile ways, it is a fundamental misunderstanding to suggest that our intelligence community is not subject to oversight. Anyone who writes that, anything who writes anything like that, should not be believed on any fact that he
wrote that it was taken off of the CIA and put under military in order to prevent.
Our military is also subject to rigorous oversight.
That's my question. That's my question.
The answer is yes.
Do you recognize and abide by the War Powers Clause in such a situation?